So let me just recap a couple things that caught my attention. Then we're going to Q&A. And just to make sure that a couple things on Q&A, because I can feel a lot of you are going to have something to ask or to seek further guidance on. So where's Josh? Okay, so Josh in the back has the microphone and the cameraman. So you raise your hand, I'll call on you. I'm gonna help Max. Max is gonna run it, but I'm gonna call on people. So then he'll bring the mic to you. Wait, introduce yourself, who you are and who you represent, so people understand the context where your question's coming from. Keep it to a question, please. Don't give a big dissertation, because we have a few minutes to do what we could spend 8 hours on. Okay, I'd appreciate that. So as Josh is coming down, because our first question is going to happen here, I'm going to just throw out a couple of things to see if these things resonated with you. What I heard was, first off, on how this will be implemented at the local level is we have 411 water districts in the state, and they get the joyful duty of actually implementing what we've just been told we have to do, which is law now, and that's how you're going to be touched. So your business will be connected to your local water district, and they will be telling you how to do this, and I'm guessing they're trying to figure out how to tell you what to do. They're going to have to raise rates, and I heard we're going to be looking for another $500 to $600 million. So rates are going up. The urban water supply, which we're just dealing with the new law 3 days ago. Then when I looked at that slide that showed us by region, I went, holy heck. How come LA Public Works has to get to 32% when the city and San Francisco has to get to 8%? Both LA Public Works, the county, is at 7% on a 32% goal. Then you go over to the LADWP, which is the city of Los Angeles. They're at the same 7%, and their goal is 16%. And you think, what in the world is happening here? Either way, we've got our hands full and a lot of challenges. And you looked at Long Beach is way different from other parts. So those things are alarming. I'm going to say that because those of us have all the properties, own all the business, doing all the building, are the ones that have to comply urgently and effectively. So Max, thank you for that brilliant, detailed, swift presentation. And now we're going to go to Q&A.
Hi, my name is Earle Vaughan. I was a little confused by your presentation on the residential side. By the way, I'm on the board of directors of the Apartment Association of Greater LA, represent about 8,000 owners in LA County. And the confusion from our point of view is I saw nothing in there that would reflect the fact that residents of apartments in the city of Los Angeles and county of Los Angeles live in master metered buildings, and there is no market signal to send to them in order for them to conserve water. So we feel, our owners are definitely scared by this, and we feel that there's a big piece being left out of everything we hear about water conservation, and that is, how are we going to get our residents to conserve water?
That's a great question. So a couple things. One is this issue has not gone unnoticed. There is a bill this year in the legislature that aims to address some sub-metering, maybe not the entirety of the issue. But I think the second thing, as I mentioned, the focus here is really on the outdoor water use, because that's where we have over 50% of the use across the state, and that's where we know that cuts can be made that don't imperil health and safety. And I think we're cognizant of the issue of tenants not having that incentive. I don't think that that's something that can be solved in the next few months. And that's essentially where we came down on that, is there's no short-term fix to that other than making sure that the local agencies get the message out as much as they can to try to get people to conserve. And I know that their representatives, Penny Falcon's here from the Department of Water and Power on the next panel, who may want to talk about what they're doing in the city on this issue. But that's sort of the state perspective.
My name is Christopher Piano, and I'm with LAACO Limited. We own and operate the Los Angeles Athletic Club, California Yacht Club, and Storage West Self-Storage in Southern California. One thing that seems kind of absent from this is agriculture, we know agriculture uses by far the lion's share of water in this state, including some water-intensive uses like growing almonds. And I did a little back of the pad calculation. If we achieve even a 25% reduction and leave out agriculture, it still makes a very small impact in the total water use. So why isn't more being done with regards to agriculture versus urban uses?
Okay, so let me try to do this one fairly quickly, because this is a long answer, because it's a really important issue and it's been raised many, many times. You know, I mentioned at the beginning of this that agriculture has already taken a big hit, right? We've already seen hundreds of thousands of acres of fields fallowed, and the economic impacts of that. People are out of work. So, you know, one thing to think about and remember is, you know, even if it's almonds or alfalfa, there's economic value there. There's jobs, and you know, your front lawn that no one is using is not adding that same type of economic value, and it's using a lot of water. So this is not an either or. Everyone needs to do their part. The governor recognizes that. There are provisions in the executive order that deal with agriculture. You're going to see more actions that relate to agricultural water use. But agricultural water use is governed by a very different set of rules. For surface water, as I mentioned earlier, there's a water rights system. Some people get cut off. Some people don't, but it does. There are many businesses in the agriculture sector that have been affected significantly already. You may not see the same type of specific cutbacks ordered, but as we go further into this drought, you may. The other thing to mention is that for the first time in 100 years last year, legislature approved a groundwater management law. And that law is just starting to take effect and is going to require better management of our groundwater basins so we don't see the levels declining, the land subsidence, all of the issues. And that's primarily going to impact agriculture. So it's not on the same time scale, but the reality is that the drops that are saved here, that's helping the levels in Diamond Valley and our other reservoirs stay up. And that's critical for going forward to maintain our urban supplies. So it's a complex picture, but it's really not, it's not an either or, it's a both and the agriculture use is being addressed.
My name is Jim Stahl, solely for MWH Global. A simple question, where can we access the M3 economic analysis or see that report?
It's on our website, you know, which is just waterboards.ca.gov.
Okay.
And right on the front page of the website is a big bold link that says emergency water conservations, 25%, and you click on that and there's a whole list of all the documents that are associated with the work we've done, including that economic analysis.
I personally have...
Eli, you got to introduce yourself.
Oh, Eli Cortez, Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers. I personally have invested my own home on turf removal. And City of LA has a great program and it seems to be working, but there's a lack of sense of urgency with other cities. And furthermore, there's a lack of standards of how to best get that savings. And to me, we experienced personally a lot of savings, but we invested ourselves. We called, we're in Chino Hills. We called our city, and they had 8 homes that they were going to fund to do turf removals. Where in City of LA, they're giving you, you know, $3 for $3, which is you break even pretty much with that turf removal. And that happens to be one of the biggest residential savings opportunities. So why aren't all the cities standardizing using that methodology?
So we're getting there. One of the things in the governor's executive order requires our Department of Water Resources to update what's called the Model Landscape Ordinance, which is this basically template for how cities and other local governments should regulate landscapes within their boundaries. And we're going to tighten up what's in there, puts a little more enforcement into that. As I mentioned, you know, there's a lot of money now available for the turf removal rebates, so we're trying to get those incentives as high as they can. But it's really hard for the state to sort of impose a one-size-fits-all approach across so many different local governments and jurisdictions. So we're trying to strike that balance between putting in prohibitions that really should apply to all Californians and all cities, and then building in that flexibility to account for local conditions.
Where's the sense of urgency?
Well, believe me, we have a sense of urgency. And we are trying, you know, all of us who are involved in this, from Felicia Marcus, our chair, on down, are out there across the state. We're doing events like this. We're talking about the drought. We're trying to get the message out in the media, in the communities, because we certainly have a sense of urgency about this. We live it every day. And we're trying to make sure that that urgency, you know, is felt at the community level. And so we actually need help from everyone to get that message out.
Josh, let's go to John right here. So, and while they're walking there, you're telling us all the cities should have access to the turf removal rebate program.
Yeah, that's a statewide program.
So then you can talk to your cities and your city officials about that, right? Okay. John?
John Leung with San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District. It's great that the state has the conservation program, and we get that. But would you mind talking a little bit more about how we integrating or streamlining the process of getting project done? Because the state has thrown around a $7.5 billion bond for infrastructure, but yet if you look around, the regulatory agency have not been able to streamline project processing or application process, because if you just go through the EIR process, any project that water project we're looking at, it's going to take 3 years to get done. So that's really not going to be very helpful for the current drought conditions. So is there anything that the state, I haven't really seen a whole lot on that area, that the state is working on to streamline the process to allow water project, water or wastewater recycle project get done, so that we can supplement or complement our water supply area, because we can conserve, but conservation is a diminishing return proposition. But at the end of the day, we've got to have way to augment our supply, and there are ways to do that. But the current condition is it's almost impossible to get any of those supply side project done in a expeditious manner because of the various regulations that is pretty much tie our shoelaces together. And is there anything that the state is looking at to streamline that?
Yes. So actually, in all of his now 4 executive orders pertaining to the drought, Governor Brown has included provisions to streamline permitting, waive some CEQA requirements for certain types of projects. One example I'll give is for recycled wastewater. For projects, you know, that take our wastewater supply, which is a pretty drought-resistant supply, and treat it to a level where it can be returned either for irrigation or into a groundwater basin to augment our supplies. We are trying to move those as quickly as possible, and there are provisions in the orders that have been passed that streamline those CEQA processes. So that's absolutely something we're trying to do.
Well, but the regulatory condition is that you require daily monitoring of the water supply, which is impossible for the recycled water industry to comply with. So not only the CEQA issue, you need to look at the regulatory conditions to how to provide those water so that it's practical usage for the current condition.
We're going to go to Michael next. We only have time for Michael and 2 other questions. So I'm going to go over here to Mike. We're going to go Michael.
Michael Touhey, Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, and sorry, I know we did regulations in the state that says one size fits all, but as you see in the seat, one size doesn't fit all. Okay, just making sure. As we're trying to comply with the cutbacks in Southern California, you yourself said you live in Sacramento. Most of the people in Sacramento don't have water meters. So please explain to me how Northern California is cutting back 25% when you don't even know what you currently use.
So I'll make one correction first. I don't live in Sacramento. I live in the Bay Area. I work in Sacramento. But it's a good question. Look, there was legislation a few years back that gave the few areas of the state, mainly in the Valley, Sacramento, Fresno, Bakersfield, until 2025 to put in meters. In hindsight, would someone like to go back and move that date up? Or would someone like to, put in something now that requires that date to be accelerated? Absolutely. But, we are where we are now, and we are going to work with those communities to try to make sure that they're getting the message out, even though they're not measuring because they don't have the meters in. But meters are expensive and they take time to install, so there's nothing we have no magic wand to say, you can get meters in the next 6 months, and then, then we can measure that.
But even after putting in the meters, you also delayed reading them in the state legislature, the state law. You don't even read them for 10 years after you put them in.
Well, I just note that the majority of the members of the state legislature are from Southern California, so I think you might want to take that up with them.
Sometimes they forget that, though. It's our job. We frequently have to remind them where they're from. They go up to Sacramento and somehow they decide they're Bay Area people. I don't know, nothing against Bay Area people there, Max, but we gotta remind people. Okay, so now really so I said 2 questions, now we have 5 hands up. So Michael Beasley is next. I saw his hand very early on. And then Luis, I already called, and then we'll end up with Laura, unless Charles, you're hot? Yeah. We can go quick. We'll do all of you. Okay, here we go. Real quick. Go, Mike.
Okay, Mike Beasley with the Boeing Company. I have 2 very quick questions. One on one of your slides that was new requirements for urban water suppliers. You had a bullet item that they're required to do a report on monthly use by CII customers. The question is that an aggregate number that they're supplying, or are they breaking down customers by company name?
That's an aggregate number.
Okay. And then secondly, I appreciate your need for flexibility because of different local conditions, but perhaps the State Water Board could develop some best management practices that can be used by the various water purveyors. You do it in the stormwater world. It should be fairly easy to put that together so there's some consistency in the programs that are being implemented.
Okay, while you're there, let's go to Charles. I'm going to get to all of you, but let's manage our time.
Just a quick question.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Charles Gale, and I'm representing the South Bay Association of Chambers of Commerce. We have both private and city services in our area. Consumers are a bit confused. We're asking them to conserve water, but their water bill is going to go up. Can you help us with some type of fact sheet that illustrates that? Because they're very confused and they don't know if I'm going to conserve more, you're going to charge me more, and they don't get that game. They don't understand the equation there. So could you explain that to us?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and that is something we will be working on. With rate structures, even if you change the rates, not everyone's bill necessarily goes up. But that's something we definitely need to get the message out on. So that's a great point.
Thanks, Max, for your presentation. I'm Luis Vasquez with Maya, social marketing agency. My question is regarding getting the word out. We spoke about this earlier on, Max, and as you know, there are 14 million Latinos in the state of California, the largest in the nation, 5 million here, but yet in the history of California, there is no comprehensive conservation effort. Even your website, Save Our Water in Espanol, is nothing more than a PDF. We're talking about individuals who consume digital technology, and once again, LA Times had a front page article about a week ago, state of denial. Everyone's looking for the next big idea on conservation, but yet reaching out, educating people, it's not happening. Why is that, and what can we do? Thank you.
Potential for engaging not only with the agencies, but also with your elected representatives in the legislature. They're the ones who approve the budget for all of our operations, including our outreach and marketing operations at the state level. And it's absolutely true that, one, state government isn't the best entity to do outreach and education. It's really not our wheelhouse. But two, we do need to make sure that we are using all the resources that we can to make sure that we are helping to get the message out. So again, I think this is an area that really calls out for engagement with elected officials at all levels.
Yeah. Laura Olhasso, I represent 3 associations of Realtors, and one of the things that is of concern to my members is the increasing cost of housing, largely because of lack of supply. One of the things that you said was that HCD was looking at regulations on housing. Would that include restricting the construction of new housing, or only moderate how it's built and landscaped?
It would only be standards on basically the landscaping and the type of indoor efficiencies that have to be built into new housing.
Let's thanks Matt. Good job handling the hot seat, and I know we're going to do a lot more with you. Thanks for coming down from Sacramento to be a part of this. All right, everyone get situated. We have people coming in. I want to just call out a couple folks that have joined us since we last did greetings. Our founding chair, David Fleming, and thanks for joining us. This whole thing was his idea and got us started. I'd like to recognize a board member from the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, Raul Romero. Glad you're here. We have MWD board member, Jackie McMillan. Jackie, glad you're here. And from La Habra Heights, Mayor Pro Tem Kyle Miller.